speaking of hippy-dippy climate campaigners, let's have a look at Europe today, which is where everything they've said is pretty much coming true. Now, Europe's burning, that's the headline. Temperatures are the highest they've ever been. In fact, the world as a whole broke its hottest ever temperature record a week or so ago, several times in 1 week, in fact. There are heat domes in America, but there are people saying this is all a globalist plot. It's a liberal hoax to try to get people to go to net zero quicker. I thought that was how of course they're trying to get you to go to net zero quicker. It's how we stop burning, you idiots. Jess, have you been leaving the heating on and the window open in an attempt to heat up the planet? Is this your fault, you liberal hippy-dippy Londoners?
I have, and I've been boiling the kettle every 5 minutes, Susie. No, I've been very environmentally friendly for many years. I'm one of those vegetarian types as well for many, many years before everybody else jumped on board. But I think the idea it could be some kind of sort of conspiracy theory, conspiracy ploy across the country. It is one of those sort of things where you just roll your eyes and you go, really? Do you think that? Unfortunately, a lot of people do think these sort of things. I'll tell you a quick little story before we go on. I went to this place it was in Kentucky. I won't say exactly where the place was, but it was a tourist attraction. And part of it was a huge display about denying climate change and how it didn't happen and how it's not true. And people were reading it and showing it to their kids, seriously. And they were, with no sort of like questioning or anything. And I appreciate where, this is in sort of an area where we know that climate deniers are probably quite rife.
A bit redneck in Kentucky, yeah.
But it was the staggering. This was a huge tourist attraction, and to see it there, black and white, and watch people read these things and go, "Oh yeah, well that's what they're telling us, this lie, and this is what it is." It just shows that actually we are in this sort of London bubble, a sort of British bubble as well, where we all, we think, well, it's common sense that people are think what we think, but we mustn't underestimate that there are people around the world very staunchly do believe, that it's all rubbish.
Yeah, unfortunately, and they're the Americans and they're the superpower. That's the fundamental problem with it. If they were just, Sicily or something, it wouldn't matter so much. But Sicily, of course, is one of the ones that's burning, and so is America. But they still seem to have this sort of ability to say that what's happening under their noses isn't really happening. Now, what do you think, everybody? Is it a liberal hoax? Do you think climate change is something we do need to worry about or not? Now, Britain, for the moment, from the heat that is burning up Europe, is being mercifully protected by the jet stream, which sort of brings cold air down from the north, and it's pushing the heat down back towards the Mediterranean. But last summer, the jet stream was in a slightly different position, and that heat came up. It was only for a few days, but it got to 40 degrees. It was our hottest ever temperature last summer. My raspberries burnt, nearly caught fire. Jess, all this could be on our doorstep with very little warning, couldn't it? We've got footage of wildfires in Greece at the moment, and we had wildfires, I think it was Essex last year, it nearly took people's houses out. This isn't, with a very few tiny tweaks to the jet stream or the Gulf Stream, which they do habitually move, this could be us.
Yes. It could be. This is incredibly serious. Obviously, it's been getting worse over the years, and there's various issues around this. I actually have family in Greece, and it was obviously the fires there got very close last year. They were not far from the village where they live. So it's terrifying. It's terrifying that people still can't open their eyes and say, this is a huge problem. We do need to do something. We've been warning about climate change for, 50 odd years.
Yeah.
There's articles back in the 80s. And yes, the world didn't end by 2000, like some of them said. But, we're not far off. It's a very serious state of affairs at the moment. I went to something with David Attenborough, and they were talking about how this is really very much a pivotal point this is the turning point where we've got to start acting seriously to turn it around. We may still have a chance to turn it around a little bit, so that we don't go down the road. We haven't got that long. And they were talking about the next sort of 10 years or so is absolutely crucial. Now, bearing in mind, not to go too, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but sometimes you should be. We haven't got a plan B. Let's put it like this. Elon Musk might have a plan B because he's got a nice little SpaceX, business on the side. He's probably got somewhere he could shoot off to.
Oh, no, if he's managed to terraform Mars, he's kept that one quiet.
Exactly. He has kept that one quiet, but you never know. But what I'm saying is we haven't got a plan B, in all seriousness. The planet hasn't got a plan B. So let's, we need to address what the main issues are and look at who are the main people responsible for this. And I do agree that everyone should be doing their bit, but we also need to look at, there's some countries where the emissions are, absolutely astounding. And there is that sort of conversation about obviously financial situations and economics of a country versus having to be net zero, etc. But there needs to be really serious discussions about this, because we can't let some superpowers and some other big developing nations pump out all of this stuff at the detriment to all of us. But we also do have to take personal accountability.
Well, this is one of the things, isn't it? I think I was talking to a member of my family at the weekend saying, well, it's all China's fault. They're the ones pumping stuff out. You've got to stop China. They're the ones at the issue. Well, yes, they are producing more emissions than anybody else at the moment, and them in India. But that boils down basically to, why should my life be any different? Everyone else has to have less power consumption. I'm going to carry on with my 2 cars and my need for a fridge freezer and so many television sets and so many holidays per year, and I want to fly here and do this and do the other. I don't want anything in my life to alter whatsoever. Everyone else needs to fix it. That's what it boils down to, that kind of attitude, fundamentally. And the argument is that other countries need to do more. What do you think, everybody? Paul Bateman says we won't be protected when the Gulf Stream stops. The Gulf Stream has been there for many, 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 many eons. It could potentially stop. And it's the jet stream that brings down from the north. It's the Gulf Stream that brings more temperate weather, warmer weather from the Caribbean. So either one of them can alter, but some of the ocean's currents and so on are the things that we really don't want to alter, because that affects our weather patterns. And the ocean's currents can alter because the ice caps melt and you get more fresh water in the sea, and there's a problem with the currents, and then you horribly went. Now listen, I can remember being taught about greenhouse effects in GCSE geography, which is about 30 years ago. Right. And we've spent the 3 decades since arguing whether or not it was true. While all around us in Kent, where I went to school and where I live now, what you can grow in the fields has changed. It used to be raspberries, and now there's just not enough rain in the summer for that. And so it's wine, which they have had in the south of France. The winters have got wetter, the summers have got drier. We've done very little up to now, despite the fact people want to say, oh, Britain's done loads, we don't need to do any more. We haven't done enough, have we, Jess, really?
No. As a whole, no, we haven't done enough. And like I was saying, I think I don't think there's too many people that would say, oh, to hell with this, I'm just going to, drive my Hummer and, burn fossil fuels for fun every night. But everyone's got to take their little bit of accountability. Yes. Whilst we're going, oh, actually, should I put that much water in the kettle to boil it? People probably are thinking, does it really make that much difference when China is doing whatever it's doing?
They might be thinking about the kettle boiling, but they're leaving the car engine on at the traffic lights, or when they're dropping their kids off at school. They're insisting on a 70 grand car, a massive great thing that pumps out God knows how many emissions, when they could have a smaller one, frankly, that was a bit better and safer. There are things as well that the government could just make some kinds of cars illegal. If you put a certain level of emissions is illegal, therefore everything gets better. It could be done.
More things could be done, certainly. I think we are making good progress. It's just whether we're making enough. Right? Obviously, we talked about the ULEZ, and I know that like lots of cities have a similar thing where it's like you can't go in certain areas if you've got a particular vehicle that has certain emissions, which is actually quite difficult if you're in certain professions like van drivers, people that use vans and things like that for their trades. That's another issue as well, which hits them in the pocket. So it is a very careful balance with a lot of these things. I do think we as a nation have done quite a few proactive measures, but I think there's always room for a lot more, because at the end of the day, nothing else really matters if we don't have a planet to live on. So all the other squabbling and all the other big issues are all insignificant against stopping climate change. If you boil it right down, nothing else matters.
All your upsets
will burn.
All your concerns about liberal conspiracies, there won't be any more of them, right?
No.
They're worried about AI taking over and scorching the sky, Skynet achieving sentience. That's not going to happen. All right. Well, in fact, we'd be quite grateful if it did, because they might sort it out.
I might side with the Terminators.
Whether or not Corbyn's going to be mayor of London, whether or not the NHS survives, all irrelevant if the actual back garden catches fire. Right, which is what has happened in this country last summer. Right, so it does need something sorting and doing about it, and it needs some fairly radical decisions. But I suspect, Jess, that if Britain was having the kind of sustained heat, and that's the problem in Europe at the moment, it's not just the temperatures. They have had hotter in some places, but it's the sustained heat. It's the length, the period of time it is that hot, which causes the death. 60,000 people died from the heat in Europe last year. It will be just as many, if not more, this year. If we had a sustained period of more than a couple of days of 40 degrees we had last summer, I suspect the voters and the government would be an awful lot closer to saying that this must get sorted out and fixing it. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, Rishi Sunak ditched a £12 billion climate project, which would have helped other nations with green schemes, would have provided British jobs, lots of geopolitical soft power, would have helped persuade the whole world to do things the way Britain wants them done, to make everything a little bit better and healthier, because it sounded too much like spending money on other people, and no one would wear it. The voters wouldn't wear it. But when are the government and the voters going to get the hint, do you think? Because the government gets the hint after the voters do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people will get the hint when seeing more and more pictures like this. I think there's even more footage coming from Greece this morning, showing the intensity of some of these fires. And I think it's when it really affects people directly. And sadly, when it affects you directly, that's when you're going to be most invested in trying to find a solution. And I mean, one way it is affecting people is there has been a lot of talk about people worrying about their holidays, and people saying, they've had to come back from their holidays early because it's just too hot.
Oh gosh, the holiday that they went on a plane that they didn't need to take.
I think we've got to have a balance a little bit, because we can't demonize people for taking like one holiday a year. Yes, it would be lovely if we could turn back the clock and not have air travel. But we've kind of let that's the horse has bolted the stable on that one. People can get around that way. So we either go back and say, right, okay, we can't have these things, or, perhaps there's perhaps we put in the sort of, you can only take so many flights a year or something like that, or you can only have a carbon footprint of this a year, and you can use your allowance however you can. But how you monitor that, I don't know.
Exactly, but there is
something on flights you can do with passports.
There is sustainable aviation fuel. There is offsetting. You can, even if you've got family abroad and you need to go and see them and so on, there are safer, better ways of going that are less carbon exhaustive, and you can limit it to one or two a year, can't you?
Exactly.
You don't have a human right to fly around the world and kill it.
No, and I think a lot of people watching probably, I mean, especially at the moment with the cost of living crisis, I mean, the thought of, I'm personally sort of one big holiday a year is probably what most people do, maybe 2 if they're lucky. I don't think we're talking about people jetting off, you know, every sort of weekend going somewhere, or, you know, but a lot of people who are saying, oh, look, they've booked their summer holiday, they're worried about going places. I've seen there's been quite a lot on sort of social media about what do you do, where do you stand, and at the moment they're saying that there isn't much hope of like refunds, because it's not one of the things that is covered, as sort of weather is outside the control of airlines and holiday firms. So it's not necessarily one of the things that's covered that you therefore holiday.
So are volcanoes exploding, but you get the money back if your volcano explodes and your plane can't take off.
That is true. Well, there is discussions around all that. All I'm saying is, if anyone is worrying about that at the moment, it's worth having a good look into it and having a read. But I mean, these are the sort of very day-to-day consequences of this much larger problem. And no, we're not worried about whether or not so-and-so can go on holiday because the planet's burning. But hopefully that brings it home to people that this is something we do need to worry about now. And we can't turn the clock back, but we can do what we can to make things better, because soon we won't have a choice. We're beyond that road and there'll be no turning point. We'll be past the turning point.
Exactly. And perhaps one of the things you could do is, anyone, if you want to go and buy a £70,000 Range Rover and have 14 holidays abroad a year, and you insist you've got a human right to do this, that and the other, and you leave your engine on at the lights and outside the school run and everything else, you just have your car keys taken away. And in fact, your wallet as well, because you're not spending it on the right stuff. Paul says, perhaps we want to be living on the immigration barges to keep cool. They'll probably be pretty cold in the winter. You can call them immigration barges if you like, Paul. I'll call them prison hulks. As someone whose 4 times great-grandfather was incarcerated on one of those things for the crime of stealing a sheep to feed his starving family in the middle of a climate crisis in the early 19th century, I'm very much with the guys who were on the boat, actually, because most of them didn't survive the prison hulks. Immigration barges probably be slightly better. There is at least running water, but do any of us want to be on there? No. Will it fix the immigration problem? No. Is it a waste of time? Yes. Anyway, who cares? Just a bit of posturing, Jessica, for headlines, for pictures. That'll fix it, won't it? No. Well, everything burns around you. Anyway, what do you think, everybody? Are you taking fewer holidays every year? Are you turning your engine off at the traffic lights? Are you worrying about climate change, or do you think someone else ought to fix it all? Do you think it's up to the government to do it? Or do you think it's up to the voters to tell the government to do it? Get into the comments and let us know.